Welcome to season 2 of the About Our Father's Business podcast. We have a special guest who's going to help us kick off the season, Dave Anderson. He is one of my favorite authors, specifically of the books, How to Run Your Business by the Book and How to Lead by the Book. And when he says book, he means the Bible. I am having him on from California. This is the first time that we've done a remote show, so hopefully the quality comes through. Originally, I wanted to only do it in person, but when Dave Anderson said he would come on, I had to make it happen. So let's go ahead and get started with our first episode of the season with Dave Anderson. Mr. Dave Anderson, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to get right into it. Could you please share, how did you come to your faith in Christ?
You know, I grew up in a family that went to church all the time, but I never really got saved until I was 11 years old. I remember I stayed home sick from school, and I was flipping through channels, and usually I liked watching game shows. I was sick a lot as a kid, so I had all my favorite game shows. Sometimes I may even stayed home to watch the game shows. Just full disclosure. And I came across, I have no idea how I came across the 700 Club with Pat Robertson. And he was talking about what it really meant to be saved and to be a Christian, and then gave the invitation for people to come to Christ. And then asked if you had done so to call and to let them know. And so I realized that, I went to church, but really I had never surrendered in the way he was talking about. So I was 11 years old, and it was Pat Robertson at the 700 Club that gave me the nudge to just go all in, if you will. And so, I think a lot of people maybe, Ronson, are in a similar situation. They have exposure to religion or religions and to churches and so forth, but then maybe they even think they are a Christian. Mm-hmm. But to a degree like I was less than nominal in that regard because I hadn't taken that next step. And so I was glad at least I figured it out by 11.
So you're 11 years old then. Wow.
I was 11 years old at the time. And then I remember when I called in, they would announce some of the people. And I remember them announcing, young David, who stayed home from school, and he just called, and I remember it very vividly. I'm 62 now. That was 51 years ago, and I can remember the couch I was sitting on. I remember the room I was in. It was in Texas, and I can vividly remember him speaking about that in the message I heard. It's odd how I forget things from yesterday, but I remember that 51 years ago.
So then, did you actually call in?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
Which was weird. I mean, I wasn't really like the type that is going to call in, but he said call in. And so it's like, well, I'm in, so I'm going to call in. And to me, that it kind of made it official because it was a form of a testimony, and it was a form of public recognition in that regard. Even though I was in that room by myself, just my parents, of course, were at work. But yeah, so I felt like it was important to call in.
Did you? How did your parents respond when you told them what you did? Or did you tell them?
I didn't tell them because I thought that they figured I already was, that I already was there. And my dad was a deacon in the church, and because I was embarrassed almost because I thought they would look, of course I'm 11, what do you know at 11? I thought they would think, well, he should have, you weren't there. What were you thinking? Why weren't you there? And so, no, I just acted like business as usual. Now, I hope they maybe saw some changes in my behavior after that. I can't say that they did, but I hope that they did.
Well, you wrote one of my all-time favorite business books, which is How to Run Your Business by the Book. And the reason why I love it so much is because I love the Bible so much. I mean, the Bible is the manual for the absolute truth in every facet of life, the universe, everything. So how much did the Bible, how much was it there after you became saved, after you were saved? Was there a lot of Bible studying for you after that?
Oh, yeah. I loved reading the Bible, and I still every morning I get 7 different devotionals that are emailed to me. I spend time every morning. Doesn't matter where I'm at, where I'm speaking in the world. I don't dare start the day without the Word of God and without and I love biblical podcasts. Much better than listening to the news during a commute. I know people, they arrive at work so angry because they're listening to sports talk radio and the news. It's like, that's not how I want to arrive at work. And so I just really got into the Bible. I started with Matthew, and I just intuitively kind of started in the New Testament. And it's just really been a lifelong study. I love commentaries. I love Matthew Henry's commentary to really dig deep. I mean, his insights, just incredible into what different verses and passages mean. And it's just become a lifelong study for me. And it really started then when I fully, officially became a Christian and got saved at 11. I just had this urging, this burning to read the Bible. And I remember I have a Bible that my grandmother gave me in 1968. I was 7, and she had inscribed it, and she had written her name in there. And I remembered I'd had that Bible on the shelf, and I never really opened it. It was the red letter edition, and I still have that Bible today. But I remember getting that Bible and opening it, and then really having it, make sense, perhaps for the first time, because I think I dabbled, like in Genesis, probably not the best thing for young people to start off with, but I remembered the Bible was there, and I got it, and it's just become a huge part of my life.
So how come you also use I'm a huge fan of using commentaries, especially when they're really done right. So why not just read the Bible? Why do you also use commentaries or commentary?
I think insights are important, and I don't understand the original Greek that it was written in. I don't understand the background and the knowledge that these people had that are more experienced and more decades of study beyond what I have, and it's just really insightful. And I think the translations are important. I think understanding the context is important. The traditions, the culture, and all of that is woven in, I think, into some of the better commentaries, and it just lights my mind up. It's like, I didn't see that. I've read that 100 times, and I didn't know. I didn't see it that way. I didn't think of it. That's the fascinating thing about the Bible. It's never an old read. It's never an old read. It's a new read every time you read it. Even if you read old stuff and you're reading stuff you've read 100 times, it never feels old. There's always something speaking to you. You're in a different situation, maybe in your life, than you were the last time you read that verse, and it's speaking to you differently. And then you see how it spoke to other people, and then what the context or the translation was. It's like, wow, so powerful. Like in one verse, it's incredible.
What's your favorite translation?
I like the New King James Version. I like the New King. King James Version is great. I like the New King James Version. I don't dismiss any version. Different things speak to different people. I think some can probably get a little watered down and away from the original message, but I've always been comfortable with that version. One of my mentors, John Maxwell, who I was on his board for a period of time with Equip, and I did mission trips working with his organization. He wrote the Maxwell Leadership Bible, and where he put leadership insights into various passages. So you can really, it was a really well-written book, and he used the New King James Version Bible, and that really resonated well with me and made sense. So I kind of have stuck with that version since then.
Yeah, the original King James is a really good translation, except it uses words that we don't use anymore.
Right.
And it starts to lose its meaning because we just don't communicate like that anymore. So that's where the new King James came in. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was really, really insightful. What did you do before starting Learn to Lead? Like after you became saved, then what happened?
Well, yeah. So I never went to college. My dad actually talked me out of it to work in his restaurant business. It's like, okay, that's a switch. And so he had a restaurant business in Texas, and I learned how to cook. I was a short order cook at his truck stop, and then I would cook at his steakhouse. I was a broiler cook in the evening, so I had two jobs. I never mind hard work. Restaurant work is very honorable, hard work. Some of the best people I've hired today have come out of the food service industry because they're used to crazy hours, crazy people, dealing with all sorts of things at the same time. But the business went broke, and they all left Texas. And I didn't want to run, so I stayed. And I was 19, and I was broke, and I was not off to a very good start. And I had to move into a house. It was the only house I could afford, and that house was infested with rats. I didn't even have a couch. I lived in a sleeping bag in that house for a year. And this was way before a lot of people's time. This was in 79, 80, and the economy had really tanked then. We had 21% interest rates. Most people can't even get their minds around that today. That was prime. 13% inflation and 11% unemployment. And I remember people telling me, you're never going to find a job in this economy. But I mean, I was hungry, literally, and I wanted a couch. That was like my big goal in life, is at least to have a couch to sit on. So I started selling. The only job I could get, I was selling insurance door to door for two different companies. And then I got a job in the evenings delivering cases of corn tortillas to restaurants at night for a tortilla factory. So I worked these three jobs, and I like sales. I like dealing with people. I got a lot of rejection. I mean, it'll toughen you up, selling anything door to door. And then I had a friend that was in the car business, Bronson. He said, you might enjoy selling cars more than selling burial policies, because that's what I was selling, was a little $5,000 cheap little burial policy. I said, well, that sounds like an upgrade. Sounds like more fun being around cars, because I certainly didn't have a very nice car. And so I got into car sales, and it was so easy to get ahead. I was a young guy. I was hungry because people just didn't want to work. And I think you see a lot of that today in different industries. It's like, my goodness, if you can't get ahead today with this mediocre baseline mentality so many people have. And I was just thrilled. That car business saved me financially. I did really well. I moved up into management, got a great job offer. I had gotten married in the meantime and was able to take better care of my family. And I had gotten a job offer to move from Texas to California and run 6 car dealerships. It was a fantastic job, fantastic opportunity, big money for me at a fairly young age. And so we did. It was a big move. It was a big risk, a total culture change going from Texas to California. And I loved it. Really got into the leadership training. And I had written my first book while I was writing, while I was running that leadership group. But then a public company bought it. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the micromanagement. I didn't like the pay cut they offered me the first day I had a meeting with my new supervisor. And so I went home and I told my wife, we're starting a company. So I'd already written the first book. I was writing a magazine column at the time on leadership. And I had spoken at a couple of conventions just because of the success that we had had in the leadership group. So fortunately, as God would connect dots for us, I already had some opportunities to speak here and there. So it was a little smoother transition. And that was 24 years ago. My wife and I started it. We started developing products and videos and curriculum. And since that time, it's been a fun run. I'll usually speak 100 times a year. I've gotten 15 books published. The 16th one will be out in August. I've been blessed to speak in 21 countries. And it's just been, I never had a master plan. I just followed doors as they opened and tried to stick with my gifts. People say you should follow your passions. Well, I think you should follow your gifts. Sometimes they're two different things. And my passion was singing, but I couldn't sing. So if I followed my passion, I'd be broke. So I had to follow my gift. And when I got really good at my gift and saw the rewards it would bring, I became very passionate about my gift. And so that's kind of how it worked for me. I don't know how it works for anybody else. But it's been a great run, and we've got a great team here. We've got a training center here, and it just evolved. It wasn't sitting down at some big strategy session and mapping it all out. I can't claim that I ever did that.
How long did you sell cars for?
Oh, I sold cars for a few years. I sold cars for probably 5 years, and
What ages were you?
Pardon?
What ages were you at that time?
Oh, I was young. I was in my late 20s. I was in my
Oh,
late
okay.
20s by that time, mid 20s, late 20s, early. I think I got into management when I was like 30,
Mm.
31.
So
And I
what was
got
the
married.
secret? What was the secret to the sales though? Like obviously you're doing well. Was there a secret or is it just in the numbers?
And it's not just working hard, it's really caring. It sounds cliche, but I mean, I really did care about my customers and being honest, keeping your commitments. I mean,
Oh,
it astonished me how many times people would not make keep a commitment, or they would spin something or deceive. And I just built this very loyal customer base. They'd send me their family and their friends. They'd bring me gifts at Christmas. I had these tables stacked up with coffee cakes and bottles of wine and champagne. They brought me all this stuff, and nobody else had anything. It was like I'm having to give some of my stuff away because I felt guilty. But I just it was a relationship business,
yeah.
and just really listening to what they wanted and not trying to sell them what I wanted them to have, and it
Mm,
worked. And we try to do that same thing, today to make it about the customer, not make it about us. And then hard work. Certainly, you have to work hard. You have to work hard. I
mm,
wasn't afraid of hard work. Restaurant work is hard, so if you can do that, you can certainly do just about anything. And it was just the way that I did it. And a lot of people, though, they would get into something like the car business. People look down on the car business. The car business has a reputation, used car salesman and so forth. But what a tremendous, I think it's the best kept secret in the free enterprise system. I've seen more guys like myself without formal educations, as far as college, no degrees, that could get in and in a short period of time totally change their lives around, have executive positions. You learn a lot on the fly while you're going. And so, yeah, it was hard work. And then just being the right type of person, just being the type of person that people wanted to come back to again. I really did believe if I could create a great experience, the price would be less relevant. Price is
okay,
never going to,
sorry, can we dive a little bit deeper into that? I'm so interested in what you just said right there,
yeah, because
which is
everybody
how,
thinks it's
give me an
about price.
example. Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's about price, and price is important. I don't think we'll ever make price irrelevant. But if you can create a wow, if you can create a wow experience, all of a sudden it's not as relevant because they're willing to pay for you. They're willing to pay for the experience that you're creating. I mean, people think everything's about price, but if it was about price, why would we ever need a Ritz-Carlton or a first class on an airline? I mean, they're going to the same place. They land at the same time. Actually, the people in back land first because the plane kind of goes down like this and then flattens out. And so it's just, I and most people are willing to pay a little more. But I figured that out early, that they weren't cutting my throat over $10 a month like they were these other guys because they were just commodities. And I didn't want to be a commodity. I wanted to be a resource. I didn't want to be a vendor. I wanted to be a resource. I wanted to be valuable. And even the people who wouldn't buy from me, I remember I would follow up with them. How are they treating you? How's the car working out? If they don't take care of you there, we can handle it here at our service department. And they would tell me, Dave, the guy that sold me the cars never called me. And
Wow.
you're calling me. I'm going to send everybody to you. I got more referrals just from
Mm.
people I never sold.
And that's
That
just from
bought
you
somebody
just
else.
getting on the phone. Is it just you getting on the phone?
Get on the phone. They were shocked to hear from me. It's like, okay, like, I buy the car somewhere else, right? I said, yeah. How's it going? Are you liking it? Are they treating you all right? Well, I'm glad you made a great decision. I'm glad you're happy with it. That was my primary concern. If it ever goes wrong there, we've got a great service department and I just kept the door open. I'm not mad at somebody. I'd be disappointed. I never wanted to lose a deal, but I took the long view.
Mm.
I'd have somebody that had lousy credit and because I had lousy credit at one point in my life and I saw how poorly they were treated. And it's like, this person may have lousy credit now, but it doesn't mean nobody they know has good credit. And it doesn't mean that one day they may not have good credit. So why not be respectful? And I would treat them like $1 million.
Mm.
And I would get their family and their friends and because I was respectful, even despite the tough situation they were in, because I could empathize with it. So it's just such a relational business. And I think you can take that to so many things. I tried to create better experiences. I mean, I didn't, when a customer came in, I didn't go right for the throat. I'd talk about anything other than a car deal. Where are you from? And we talk about the weather. I noticed a bumper sticker on their car. You like those guys? Is that the team you like? And we talk about all this stuff. There's the kid wearing the sweatshirt and what school he was from. And they needed to buy into me before they were buying into what I was trying to sell them. But that came easy to me. And most people, it's like, what can I sell you today? And they're going right for the throat. And it's just a transaction. I wanted to be relational, not transactional. And I think most people are willing to pay more for that.
What brand was the dealership? What make?
Oh, I started out at a Chrysler Plymouth Jeep Eagle dealership. I mean, if you could sell an Eagle Summit wagon, they'd pin a medal on you. We'd leave the keys in them at night. They'd still be there the next day. It's like... But Plymouth was coming out with the Voyager, and the minivan was popular, and Jeep.
Remember the Laser?
Was a popular product.
There was a Laser that I remember that I loved.
A Laser, the Plymouth.
I'm a
Laser.
huge car guy. Yeah.
And then the first department I managed was an import department: Mercedes, Toyota, and Hyundai. And that's back when Hyundai was not a good product. It's a wonderful.
I remember.
Product now. But that was way back when you almost had to apologize for the product, and then many other brands throughout the years. But a little bit of everything. But I started out at a Chrysler, the oldest school, worst location, corniest commercials, worst reputation dealership in town. It's not there anymore. I think that's why it was easy to stand out. It's like, how bad do you have to be to stand out of this place? I mean, you got to be able to stand out at a place like this, right?
Yeah, the reason why I asked that because not to be too stereotypical, but you're getting a different type of clientele from Chrysler compared to BMW or Mercedes, right? Yeah. And your approach might be a little different, but it seems like you took the Mercedes or BMW approach to the Chrysler people.
That's a good way of putting it, and they really weren't used to that. But listen, that person buying that lower price car, that is a Mercedes to them. That is a BMW to them. I mean, it's a new car outside of their house. It's one of the happiest things they're going to buy, And so to them, I might have sold a car every day, but to them, they may buy one every 5 years, every 10 years. And so this was a big deal, and I liked making it a big deal, not just another transaction or treating them a certain way because they were buying a certain car. To them, that's their Rolls Royce, man.
So you said you wrote your first book while in that car business?
Yeah, my first book was on sales, and I wrote a book that nobody wanted to publish called Selling Above the Crowd, 365 Strategies for Sales Excellence. And so it was a simple book, but it was a book you could use for a year. And it started off with, and it still sells, basic chapters on attitude and dealing with different personalities and so forth, negative people. But then there was a paragraph or two every day for 365 days on a skill, habit, or attitude to get better at sales. And we still have people that go through that book every year. So that was the first book I wrote was on sales, because sales, even though I was running 6 dealerships, sales was still very close to my heart.
And you wrote that probably for probably help your salespeople, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did really, really well at that group, which is why the public company bought it, and then they ran off all the talent that built it. It's like, okay, how smart is this? And I will tell you, within 4 years, the 6 dealerships, they had paid a ton of money for it. They didn't have any of them left. They spun off 2 of them. I spun off 3 of them, and I think 2 of them became Whole Food stores. And then one of them there's nothing there. There was nothing there. So I don't know how you take dealerships that were selling 400 and 500 cars a month, and you bring them down to 100 cars a month without closing 3 weeks out of the month. But they managed to figure out how to do it, and they did it a lot,
Why did you decide to write How to Run Your Business by the Book and How to Lead by the Book?
Yeah, the book, of course, being the Bible, and I had started. I had tithed from an early age. I had tithed when we were broke, when my wife and I were still trying to work our way out of the hole. And we were, in one of the chapters, in I think How to Run Your Business by the Book, I talk about tithing our way out of the trailer park. We were in the ugliest trailer in the ugliest trailer park. in the city we were in. But I'd always thought that any good leadership principle actually has a biblical basis behind it. And my study through the Bible, I realized, and working with John Maxwell and studying his work, his principles are biblically based. And so it's like, there have been some books written, business books on biblical principles, but I want to do my own. And I had started doing mission trips, Bronson, for John's Equip. And we would commit to go to an area of the world twice a year for 3 years. And they would take a businessman like myself, and they would pair us with a pastor. And we would teach this principle-based curriculum to these hungry church leaders who weren't getting that type of training. It was a wonderful experience. So I took the areas nobody else wanted. I took Russia, and I took the underground church in Iran. We couldn't hold the classes in Iran, so we would hold them in a neighboring country, and we would kind of secretly take the top 50 or 60 leaders out and bring them to a remote location. It's the only mission trip I ever went where we had like a security detail. There were prices on some of these people's heads. And so, but a lot of them had businesses because they had to make money. They couldn't really make money as a pastor underground in Iran, digging a Bible out of the ground and reading it to 5 people in a pasture somewhere. And so we kept talking about, through translators, the relevance of all these biblical principles that you can build a church with, to build businesses with. And I had been thinking that way for quite some time, so I thought, I'm going to do it. So I called my publisher, who I built a good relationship with at the time, and because they're a secular publisher. And I said, you usually don't do this type of book. It was Wiley, world's biggest business book publisher. He said, no, but we'll do it for you. And I thought that was outstanding. And so we did it. The book did really well. Then we came out with a revised, expanded edition. And then we did the follow-up, which was How to Lead by the Book. But it was really what triggered my idea was an accumulation of experiences, reading the Bible, seeing its application in business, and then doing those mission trips and hearing it from a number of people, how they use it in their business. It's like, yeah, there's something here. And I really enjoyed writing those. It was totally different. It's been a while ago, but the principles are, the principles stand the test of time.
Very good. We're hitting the end of the first episode here, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back, and we're going to talk, get deeper into some of these really, really important subjects, such as importance of leading by example, importance of tithing, taking on debt as a business owner, and maybe even should you get into a business partnership based on what the Bible tells us. So we'll be back for episode number 2 with Mr. Dave Anderson.